few years ago, I fell in love with the ideas of the road trip and the power of invitation. For the first 20 or so years, I went to the same church at the same time after being guilted out of bed by my mum, who either wanted some company on the 4-minute ride to church or was hoping that maybe after enough Sundays, maybe some of her experiences would stick to me. They didn't. God kept early hours, and we didn't share any of the same interests. However, at 18, I accepted an invitation for a road trip to ski in Red Lodge, Montana, which eventually spawned a trip to a work camp at Hills of Peace, another ski trip, and the mother of all road trips 2 years later to go to Graceland. As I discovered, road trips take some planning, usually involve traveling with others, and almost never turn out exactly as planned. After 3 years of traveling between Saskatchewan and Iowa, I returned home to a congregation that had suddenly become populated with people whom I found intriguing and friendly. I had seen a glimpse of what worship could be. So a few years later, I traveled back to Graceland with Dan Winarski for a week-long congregational leaders workshop where we struck up a friendship with Bob Kaiser and scored a free pizza at Pizza Shack. This relationship paid off when we invited Bob to be our first guest minister at the inaugural Western Canada Mission Centre men's retreat. Our road trip to Hills of Peace with Bob and the celebration that weekend led to over a dozen other men's retreat road trips, with guest ministers who had never been to our campgrounds and with native sons who had returned home. It was there that I rediscovered the joy of the shared experience and a spirit that spoke of boundless grace instead of eternal hellfire. As a result, I accepted the invitation to attend a weekend in Idaho. The road trip was hilarious. The weekend was evangelical, and the impact on me was life-changing. I had no idea that church could be live wire. So when the Regina branch had a chance to become part of leading congregations in mission, I accepted the invitation on behalf of a group that didn't even exist. It wasn't a leap of faith. 7 times a group of 5 of us flew to Palm Springs and headed up the mountain. I called it Senior High Camp for middle-aged adults. The worship, the fellowship, the classes, we returned from each session with new ideas for community partnership and a different view of who we were being called to become. Now, in the time of COVID, we're on a different road trip. We started by taking a short jaunt from the chapel to the parking lot. Imagine, church outdoors, surrounded by the sounds and the lives of our neighbors. Then we took the journey one step further. Now we don't arrive at a place. We meet in a common, virtual space. Our invitations have traveled outside the city and the province, and I realized that this is the easiest invitation ever offered. If our gathering doesn't reach you, you don't have to awkwardly get up and walk out. You just exit the meeting. Our worship isn't a sermon delivered by a speaker from the front. It is the group sharing personal responses to questions. In the future, when we return to our building, we will continue to share through technology, but we will also appreciate the gift that is in-person community. An invitation is often inexplicable, sometimes brave, perhaps the result of a spiritual nudge. We can refuse, but when we say yes and head out on the road trip, we open ourselves up to the unexpected. I am thrilled to be part of that group, inclusive, diverse, and adventurous. We create memories, but just as importantly, we create community.